Good morning. I am Juan Jimenez, co-founder and CEO of AccurKardia. Thank you, LSI, for organizing this wonderful event. In AccurKardia, we are building device-agnostic ECG interpretation software to improve cardiac care worldwide. We combine AI and non-AI techniques to deliver our solution on the cloud, on device, and at the edge. Meet Alice. Alice is an active 60-year-old female that has recently become aware of her heart health during the Heart Awareness Month. She's very active. She might explore some solution herself. She might get a fitness tracker or a consumer wearable with an ECG sensor. Also, she might approach her primary care physician and find her way to a cardiologist. And a cardiologist may prescribe an inpatient ECG recording or a more thorough recording, such as a Holter monitor or a cardiac patch for 1 or 2 weeks. As part of this experience, she was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, commonly known as AFib. In her brief experience, she noticed that the solutions in the market were highly fragmented. She couldn't get a clinical interpretation from the ECG recording coming from her consumer device, and the clinical interpretation from the clinical device took days and even weeks to arrive. Alice is not alone. 18% of Americans over the age of 65 suffer from a heart disease. 5% of Americans over the age of 18 suffer from a cardiac arrhythmia. Heart disease, believe it or not, continue to be the leading cause of death in America. As Alice, most of these Americans every day cannot share with the physician the ECG interpretation coming from the consumer devices, or the interpretation from the clinical devices takes days and weeks to arrive, delaying prompt treatment and losing lives. Given the severity of this problem, the cardiac monitoring market in both the clinical and consumer segment are massive and expected to grow at double digits. ECG is at the core of cardiac care, and it is a major expense. The ECG interpretation components from the recording coming from the Holter monitors, cardiac patches, and MCTs is over $5 billion in the US alone, just the non-medical component according to Medicare reimbursement rates. On the consumer wearable side, there have been a high proliferation of these devices and more coming with ECG sensors. Our goal is to deliver our solution to device makers, both in the clinical and consumer segment, remote patient monitoring companies, and telehealth service providers. Our aim is to capture 20 to 30% of the ECG interpretation spend of the non-medical component for a target TAM of $1.25 billion in the US alone. According to our own estimates, and given the high demand for these consumer devices with ECG sensors, we estimate that the clinical ECG monitoring component could be $300 million annually and growing rapidly. In AccurKardia, we will be the solution of choice for ECG interpretation space in a device-agnostic manner. We have been able to build this solution with clinical-grade accuracy, provide results in near real time. We need 10 seconds of ECG data to produce our first output, and we can update our model for every subsequent millisecond. Therefore, we can provide our clinical ECG interpretation to physicians in a matter of minutes rather than days or weeks, helping us treat patients earlier and save lives. Our diagnosis coverage includes 40+ conditions, even though our first 510(k) filing includes for diagnosis for up to 12 different rhythms. Our clinical workflow is integrated with the current workflows in the market. Our output is reimbursable from day one. Let me repeat, we don't need to lobby for a new CPT code, reimbursement rate with different payers. Most payers reimburse automated ECG interpretation today. And our product has a low compute footprint that enables to work at the edge, on the cloud, or on device. This flexibility can enable us to help in areas when there is limited internet connectivity or there's issues accessing the cloud. Or for cybersecurity policies, our partner may require us to work on-premise. Our pipeline includes AccurKardia, which is the use case for Holter, cardiac patches, event monitors, and MCTs. That product, we submitted a 510K a few months ago, and we are waiting for FDA feedback. AccurBeat, which is our use case for recording coming from consumer devices, is in the clinical validation phase. We conducted our first clinical study with an Apple Watch in SUNY Downstate in Brooklyn, and we are continuing the clinical validation effort throughout this year. And our third product is AccurAPI, which we consider AccurECG on steroids, which is a more powerful, flexible, and scalable solution than our first product. And that product is still under development, and we expect to initiate clinical validation later this year. Our team includes scientists, clinicians, and healthcare professionals, led by our core leadership team. Today, we have in the audience Naveen Srinivas, our chief scientist, who has a unique expertise in both hardware and software and AI, making him of great value to our company. In addition, we have Sadek Ali, our chief technology officer and chief product officer, who is a seasoned entrepreneur with former senior manager at Accenture, who has executed projects at large scale globally. And we couldn't have done and applied this knowledge into the clinical space without the leadership of Dr. Nav Rasby, who is our chief medical officer. He's a practicing cardiologist in the UK who has been trained both in the US and the UK. Given the impact that AccurKardia will provide and the value of our technology, we have been lucky to be able to recruit some of the best advisors that we could have achieved. We have cardiologists for top institutions, we have proven entrepreneurs, and seasoned healthcare executives that have deployed to market several technologies of our nature. So far, we were founded in 2019, even though the R&D predates our formation. We started R&D efforts in 2015, and so far we have been focused on technology, product, and regulatory affairs. We were able to announce last year a couple of R&D collaboration agreements with key players. As I said before, we had our first clinical study at SUNY Downstate. We submitted our 510K, and we closed our Series C funding round last year. We can proudly announce that last week we joined Cohort 3 of Mayo Clinic Platform Accelerate. Mayo Clinic Platform Accelerate is Mayo Clinic's accelerator for companies in the AI space to supercharge our development. We are going to be able to access databases with more than 10 million patients and have mentors from some of the best minds in healthcare. We are going to raise our Series A round later this year. If you want to join us in our efforts to improve patient outcomes, improve patient experience, reduce interpretation costs, and save millions of lives, please join us. Thanks, LSI, for organizing this wonderful event, and thank you for your attention.